Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is present, everyone. Thank you for joining me yet again for more SPTV. I hope everyone out there in the SP Nation is having a fantastic Wednesday. The response to yesterday's video, let me pull it up, make sure I get the name of it right, called Another OT7 Leaves Scientology. The response to that video was so incredible that I want to share with you guys another message from another under the radar Scientologist. And I'll tell you why it sort of dawned on me that it's actually a really good idea, a service to all of the other under the radar Scientologists out there to share messages like the one last night, the one today. Scientology's biggest tool is fear, compartmentalization, isolation, separation. The fact that people who are existing inside the Scientology bubble are not free to talk to each other about what they really feel or believe. It leads most people who are under the radar to believe that perhaps they're the only one. And not like the only one in the world, but like the only one in their friend group, the only one in their family. And it's one of these things where you could have like all of the members of a family are, under the radar, like mentally out of Scientology, but pretending that they're still in. Like all the members of a family could be under the radar. And yet nobody knows it. Like none of the members of the family know it. They think they're the only ones. And they are staying silent, staying quiet for fear of the repercussions. And little do they know that probably the vast majority of Scientologists are in fact under the radar and are sort of paralyzed to a degree by this sense of fear of repercussions, not fear of, oh, I'll never make it to full OT. Oh, I'll never get OT 9 and 10. Oh, I'll never regain my, native godlike spiritual powers. No, I mean fear of they'll destroy my life. Like fear of real world, they'll destroy my family. I'll lose my parents. I'll lose my kids. I'll lose my spouse. I'll lose my job. That kind of fear. Not the I'll never make it to heaven kind of fear, to use a different analogy from another religion. The they will ruin my life kind of fear. So I'm going to share another message with you guys. But before I do, I just want to do a little test, a little survey. You see I got these lights behind me, and I only ever use the blue light, but there's like 9 different colors. So I'm just going to run through these with you. Put it in the live chat, put it in the comments if you guys have a color preference. People ask, why do I always wear the black shirt? I've got my reasons. I just like black, but people might wonder, what's with the blue light? Is there something special about blue? No, I just kind of like blue. So let me run through these colors with you real quick, guys. Okay. All right. So we're going to call blue 1. Okay. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we're back to blue. Anyway, I was just messing around with that earlier today, and I figured I'd ask you guys for your input on that. Okay, I'm not going to screen share this. I'm just going to read it like I did yesterday. And let's do this. Okay, so this is the message. The fact that Scientology instills a lasting fear in people is further testament of its toxic nature. Remember, guys, this is someone who's still, Scientologists would all think this person is still in Scientology, okay? I always wonder how many Scientologists have doubts about this subject, but just suppress them out of fear and keep doing services, hoping they will finally get the gains they are looking for. Or how many just continue on doing Scientology services, courses, auditing, so that no one will call them disaffected and mess up their lives. Disaffected is a very nasty word in Scientology. It's something you can call someone even if they're not declared a suppressive person. Disaffected means it's sort of like, it's not an official label. You see, that's the thing. There's no, you'll never get an issue published on you saying Aaron Smith-Levin is hereby declared disaffected. No, it's a slur. It's a slur. And it's, anyway, you don't want people to be whispering behind your back that you're disaffected. Okay. Fear is a great control mechanism. I would think most members would acknowledge that fear is their first response to being called into ethics. That's kind of a powerful statement. When I first read that, I was like, you know what? That's amazing. Because L. Ron Hubbard, if you just, read the literal word on the page, L. Ron Hubbard was very much a do as I say, not as I do kind of guy. L. Ron Hubbard would have you believe that the Scientology's ethics and justice system is just a matter of helping members figure out how to survive better. I mean, technically speaking, if you really just truly believed what L. Ron Hubbard says the purpose of Scientology ethics was, you would welcome a call or a summons from the ethics officer. And yet this is a powerful statement. I would think most members would acknowledge that fear is their first response to being called into ethics. Since we self-police ourselves, don't watch TV shows or read negative articles, etc., I think most active Scientologists probably don't know the truly awful things that Scientology does. Protecting rapists, protecting child molesters, the trafficking, framing people for made-up crimes, the stupid hate websites, and of course, all of the total lies about Scientology expansion. If they were aware of those things, then maybe the more rational or caring people would probably leave. In the case of Scientologists, maybe many of them would say that the goal to save mankind excuses any illegal or immoral activities. The greatest good argument, which is an extremely flawed argument. And that, I believe that statement is absolutely true. That most Scientologists, not the under the radar ones, but the ones who are like true dedicated believers, go chairman of the board, you're the best, would say that the overall goals of Scientology would excuse any illegal or immoral behavior. And that is the problem. You get that greatest good ends justifies the means mentality. You can justify anything. And Scientologists do justify anything. Okay, it continues on. After all, we are indoctrinated to think that Scientology is the only answer for mankind. That's what it says in the policy letter called Keeping Scientology Working. Yep, and that message is reiterated constantly throughout L. Ron Hubbard's writings and his lectures. I never felt that everything Hubbard said was true. So maybe that meant I was never a true believer, and that opened up a crack so I could look at things. I thought this was an interesting statement because I feel that most Scientologists don't actually believe that everything Hubbard says was true. I mean, he says some really ridiculous things. I'm not even talking about the space operas and the Galactic Confederacy and Xenu and the Body Thetans and shit. I'm just talking about just stupid shit. Like I wrestled a Kodiak bear and, the best way to feed babies is with my special barley formula. And the best way to clean windows is with a newspaper. I mean, I speaking for myself, there are so many things Hubbard wrote that I completely discarded as total horseshit. And it did not make me question whether I was a true believer. I did consider myself a true believer, even though I actually did not struggle with throwing out certain things he said that were just total bullshit. And for you under the radar guys out there, I'll tell you a really good example of this for me was the subject of PTSness, false PTSness, pretended PTSness. Forgive me if I don't define this for everyone in the chat. But, when Hubbard starts out by saying, all illnesses, all accidents to a greater or lesser degree stem directly and only from a PTS condition. PTS means potential trouble source. A potential trouble source is someone who is connected to a suppressive person or some other source of suppression or something in their environment that is re-stimulating a past source of suppression. When I, studied that, was forced to believe that completely, and then to have it followed up with all of the technical bulletins about pretended PTSness and false PTSness. And by the way, I always get the two mixed up between pretended and false, but for the purpose of this, what the hell's that? Balloons? I I don't know what gesture I just did that triggered the balloons, but that was amazing. Here, let's do some fireworks. I know how to do the fireworks. Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So L. Ron Hubbard says all accidents, all sickness comes from being PTS. Oh, but by the way, there's things that can make you just appear PTS, but not really be PTS. And one of those things is not understanding enough Scientology basics. And you're like, what? You just said all accidents and sickness came from being connected to a source of suppression. Now you're saying you can act and behave and appear and manifest exactly the same way just because you haven't studied enough Scientology. That is a circular logic. And when I was confronted with that, I was like, oh, so the entire subject of PTSness is horseshit. Okay, good. Got the memo. Moving on. Next. And yet it didn't make me feel like I wasn't a true believer. I know there's a lot of Scientologists who could probably be surprised that I would throw away the entire subject of PTSness. But I'm just saying that when you hear it said out loud like that, guys, do you see how it's crazy? The whole everything comes from PTSness. By the way, there's 6 things that are huge exceptions to that rule. Anyway, I won't be too long-winded about it. Okay, so this person says, I never felt that everything Hubbard said was true. So maybe that meant I was never a true believer, and that opened up a crack so I could look at things. When Sea Org members referred to scriptures, I found that ridiculous and annoying. That sentence in this message to me caught my attention because in my entire existence in this sector of the Galactic Confederacy, during my time on staff and in the Sea Org, I never heard anyone refer to LRH's writings as scriptures ever. Never, not even being cute or, putting on a show or anything. The only time I've ever seen Scientology's works referred to as scriptures is when some ridiculous Scientology spokesperson is speaking, issuing a statement to the press or writing, or one of Scientology's lawyers is writing a letter to a court. And yet, clearly, this individual has heard Sea Org members refer to L. Ron Hubbard's work as scriptures. Now, to be fair, I last stepped foot in a Scientology organization in 2014. That was 9 years ago. So for you other under the radar guys out there, I'd love to hear from you. Are people really leaning into this scripture bullshit? This, trying to adopt the terminology of the world's mainstream religions? Is that like a thing that's actually happening? I just love to hear more about that. Okay. Back to this. Okay. Just some thoughts. I do appreciate the bravery that you and others have shown to stand up to this malignant group. I wonder every day how I failed to see the glaring red flags in so much of what Hubbard said and how I tolerated the obvious abuse for so long. I guess I hoped that there was a solution to man's inhumanity and a way to make this world a kinder, better place. This is important. I want to talk about this for a little bit, but the next sentence is, unfortunately, there does not appear to be. And Scientology was just a scam Hubbard created to feed his need for money and power. Oh, that was a powerful couple sentences. It was to me when I read those 2 sentences for the first time, because it just, just brought to the forefront of my brain that this hope is actually what Scientology is selling. The idea that L. Ron Hubbard was this amazing person with these amazing abilities gives Scientologists the hope that they too can become like that. The idea that L. Ron Hubbard had some research and development track that he followed to achieve these superhuman, godlike abilities, gives Scientologists the hope that by following the same path L. Ron Hubbard did, or the path L. Ron Hubbard claimed to have followed, they too could achieve that. These words, a solution to man's inhumanity. Those are words. L. Ron Hubbard specifically uses those words. Man's inhumanity to man is a phrase he really liked to use. So when Scientologists look around in society and they see drug addiction and they see criminality and they see war, to most Scientologists, Scientology is the hoped for, the promised solution to all of those things. L. Ron Hubbard says that all of those things are caused by the reactive mind, exactly what he wrote about in the book Dianetics, which he called the modern science of mental health. And he says that through Dianetics auditing and Scientology auditing, you can get rid of the reactive mind, which is the source of man's inhumanity to man, the source of all irrational behavior, the source of all compulsive behavior and ways of thinking. And it is precisely this hope. It's one of those that actually is one of the things that sucks people in the beginning because it's so aspirational. And the contradiction in Scientology that exists, of course, and what I think most Scientologists probably is probably the source of a great deal of cognitive dissonance for an awful lot of Scientologists, is that there is no evidence whatsoever, even within the world of Scientology, even amongst staff members, even amongst Sea Org members, even amongst David Miscavige and his direct staff, even amongst OT8s, there is not one shred of evidence that anything in Dianetics and Scientology actually delivers on that promise. You want to talk about man's inhumanity to man? Just look at how Scientologists treat each other. And if you're an under the radar Scientologist, or you're not quite under the radar yet, you're still flirting with dipping your toe in that under the radar pool. Just look at how horribly Scientologists treat each other. Just look at how horribly the ethics officer treats people. Just look at how horribly Sea Org executives treat their juniors and each other. Just look at, I'm going to say how horribly David Miscavige treats people, but for the most part, how David Miscavige treats people is outside of the view of most Scientologists. Just look at how L. Ron Hubbard treated his own wife, treated his own kids. That information is out there, guys. Read, if you're under the radar, if you're considering going under the radar, read Russell Miller's Bare-Faced Messiah. You have to read that book. Let me just do a very quick Google search and make sure I'm not getting the name of the book wrong. Yeah, there it is. Russell Miller, Bare-Faced Messiah. You've got to read the book. Let me see. Was there something else I wanted to say about this? Yeah, I guess I hope that there was a solution to man's inhumanity and a way to make this world a kinder, better place. Unfortunately, there does not appear to be, and Scientology was just a scam Hubbard created to feed his need for money and power. There's another side of this coin that I want to address, because it would seem based on that sentence that coming to terms with the falsity and the bullshit and the scam that is Scientology is like a very dreary, dreadful, hopeless thing. And yet I personally don't see it that way. Acknowledging that nothing can help everyone all the time is just simply coming to terms with reality. I mean, for the under the radar Scientologists out there, or those of you considering going under the radar, I mean, it would be like, just come to present time and confront reality. You're actually deluding yourself by thinking if Scientology was just applied correctly, it could literally help everyone everywhere with everything. That is the most deluded way of thinking. And yet all Scientologists have conditioned themselves to think that way. Just look at your own community. Okay. Just look at your own community. It is so evident. I mean, that's always the catch-all excuse, right? Because it's unfalsifiable. If some Scientologist is not able to be helped, I mean, God forbid, the first problem with, as a Scientologist trying to get help, is Scientologists will not help each other. An org will not help Scientologists for free. It is almost impossible to get Scientologists to help each other for free. There's so many people in the Scientology community, you know, second gen, third gen members, even maybe some first gen members, who struggle with things like mental health or addiction or depression or anything. There's no help available unless you're willing to pay. Scientologists will send their own kids to Scientology's Narconon drug rehab program. That program costs $30,000 fucking dollars. Scientologists will send their kids to these programs, even if they're not like addicted to a drug. Like if a Scientologist finds out their kid's smoking some weed, they'll send them to rehab. I mean, it's a lot of money and a weird thing to do just for a non-addictive situation. How many Scientology kids, do all of you under the radar people, or those of you about to be under the radar, how many of Scientology kids do you know out there who have struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled? No help has been available. No help has worked. And the excuse is always, oh, they're out ethics. It's like, okay, the world is out ethics. People are out ethics. I mean, like, so it's almost like, oh, so Scientology will only work if you apply it correctly all the time and if you always follow the rules all the time. Well, then it's not a workable system, is it? Because that's not how the world works. That's not how people work. That's not how life works. You know, it's like my exercise program will work for everyone as long as you do exactly what I say. And you're like, well, okay, then it doesn't work for everyone because not everyone's going to do exactly what you say. Anyway, I'm being a little long-winded about this. The point that I really want to make here is that I guess I'm what I'm trying to do here right now, without being too long-winded about it, is address this idea or push back on this idea that coming to terms with the fact that Scientology is not the or even a solution to man's inhumanity is not a hopeless thing. The fact that there will always be some people who are beyond help, I think it's actually kind of a sort of a weight off of people's collective shoulders to just come to terms with the fact that it is okay that there will always be some people who are beyond help for their own reasons. I'm telling you, people who have experience in the addiction field know goddamn well what this means and what, you know, the kind of stuff I'm talking about. People in the field of criminality or prison or criminal reform, no, there will always be some people who, just because you couldn't help them does not mean you failed. There's no solution that works for everyone all the time. And it's not true that for every person there is a solution. There will always be some people, just to use a very small example, for whom nothing short of an institution will be the answer. And one of the biggest cons that L. Ron Hubbard has pulled on people in Scientology is to convince them that Scientology is quite literally the solution for everything, everywhere, all the time. And if your attempt to, fix something with Scientology doesn't work, it's because you did it wrong. That is the ultimate con job that L. Ron Hubbard has pulled. And so I guess to some people, coming to terms with the fact that there's not one solution for man's inhumanity to man might feel like they're losing hope or letting go of an ideal or letting go of an aspiration. But I argue on the other side, I argue the other side of the coin. I argue it's coming to terms with reality, managing expectations, recalibrating what it is that you expect, not only of people, but of solutions, trying to help someone and not being able to is not necessarily a failure on your part. And I think that's what Scientologists struggle with on this, is they have been conditioned to believe that any inability to help someone with Scientology is a failure on their part. And I think for that reason, it can be hard for Scientologists to come to terms with the fact that Scientology just isn't all you've been conditioned to believe it is all along. And L. Ron Hubbard himself is the proof of that. David Miscavige himself is the proof of that. Tom Cruise himself is the proof of that. I just named you 3 individuals whose lives were ruined by Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard lost his wife and his kids, died in seclusion in a trailer park, in a mobile home in the desert. Does that sound like something you want to aspire to in Scientology? David Miscavige, every single member of David Miscavige's family has left Scientology. His wife has been sent off to a remote base, never to be seen or heard from Scientologists outside of her tiny little base ever again. Does that sound like something you want to aspire to? Tom Cruise's 3 wives have all left him. I guess maybe he initiated the divorce with Nicole, but all 3 of Tom Cruise's wives have left Scientology. Tom Cruise, have you ever seen an SP? Tom, all 3 of your wives are SPs. Tom Cruise has disowned his only biological daughter because of Scientology. Does that sound like something you want to aspire to? Where's the evidence that Scientology solves anything, anything at all, other than clearing out your bank account and destroying your families? Honestly, where's the evidence? So let's the Scientologists out there, the under the radar people out there, let's not struggle because we're hanging on to some promise or hope that Scientology has to be some great thing. It's so obviously not. Just look at your own community. Just look at your own leaders, your most prominent personalities. They, for the most part, are living miserable lives while pretending everything is amazing. Yeah. All right, let me tackle the super chats, and then I'm going to do an interview very shortly this afternoon with Sterling Tompkins again. We had a great interview last week. We're going to do another one today. All right. Dave Owens says, for many of these folks, SPTV is the only way to find some peace and hope. Don't stop, AA Run. You are needed. Thank you. Beans Brown. I vote number 2 and 5 and black shorts under dress shirt. Yes, they are shorts, right? Yes, I am wearing pants today. Oh my God, that's funny. Okay. MLE Angel 69 from a longtime lurker. Thank you for all you do. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The lifeboat, Tommy, let's just go with they suck. Let's see. High vibes. Question. As you are so used to policing yourself in Scientology, when you left, did you police your own mind or did you seek therapy of some kind? Let me think about this. Policing myself. I'm probably someone who policing myself. I'll tell you what, it does not resonate with me. I'd have to think about it a little more deeply, perhaps. It doesn't resonate with me that I very much policed myself while I was in Scientology. I tended to always be in a certain amount of trouble for this or that. That's probably due to a lot of my lack of policing myself. So I'd have to think of some really, really specific examples of what would qualify as policing myself or not policing myself. I mean, certainly, I was probably reasonably successful in making sure I wasn't saying the wrong thing to the wrong person for the most part. What I didn't do was do some of that thought stopping of like, oh, I must not think that, or, oh, I must not believe that. I never policed my own thoughts in that way. Well, like I said earlier, I was perfectly willing to just mentally throw away whole chunks of very important stuff L. Ron Hubbard said. And I never struggled with that. So I guess what I'm saying here is that this idea of policing myself or thought stopping is not something that I ever felt like I had to unwind from or change, because it's not something I particularly felt like I was doing in the first place. I hope that's good enough answer. High vibes. Thank you for that. Ken's channel. Scientology leverages the sunk cost fallacy. I would definitely agree with that. The phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy, course of action because they have invested heavily in it. Yeah, absolutely. Even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. Absolutely. And again, it's not even just the sunk cost of how much time and money you've spent on it. And it's the destruction Scientology would wreak upon your life upon leaving. And I'm not sure, Ken, I guess there's a part of me, Ken, that feels like fear of that destruction goes a bit of above and beyond what would be purely sunk cost fallacy. But for sure, both of these things are at play. Ken's channel says, Aaron, you waved 2 fingers. That's what does the balloons? For real? Or is it peace? Oh my God, look at that. Ken, you nailed it. You're a genius. Joni Cummings. SPs have more fun. Aaron, thank you for letting us know. Still a badass. Thank you very much. SPs do have more fun. David Griggs. Did you know that Sky Dayton's Earthlink was a Scientology company, Wise, when Philip Gale worked there? Yes. Now realize, being a Wise company I want to make sure I'm just clear about this. Being a WISE company doesn't necessarily make it a Scientology company, although I understand why some might describe it that way. Signing up with WISE, becoming a WISE member, is fundamentally something that Scientologists who own their own businesses are expected and pressured and forced to do, because becoming a WISE member, you promise not to sue other Scientologists for business issues, for any reason. And look, there are WISE companies that do pretty much turn their companies into Scientology companies, and it's possible that Earthlink was one of these companies that had like a Scientology course room in it and everything. I just don't happen to know. But you won't catch me calling a WISE company necessarily a Scientology company, because it would create the wrong idea in a lot of people. But anyway, thank you for the comment. I did know Sky Dayton. I did, of course, know that Sky Dayton was and still is a Scientologist. I did know Earthlink was a company that hired an awful lot of Scientologists. I would be interested to hear from anybody who worked at Earthlink. Any of you out there who might want to talk to me about it on my channel, message me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. I would actually love to know to what degree Earthlink did become something that could be described as like a Scientology company. Weekly stats and battle plans, conditions, formulas, write-ups, people having to study Scientology courses. Was there a course room in the company? That would be really interesting to know. Thank you, David. Gigi. Hey, Aaron, happy Wednesday. Are Scientologists who live at Scientology properties allowed to listen to music? What is the general opinion on music? Is it considered reactive? Music, there's no restrictions on music, except maybe for like music that seemed to really glorify stuff that Scientology considers sort of degraded or out of valence. So hip hop would very much be frowned upon. Rap music would probably be frowned upon, particularly rap music that used a lot of profanity. But in general, Scientologists love music. It's not really a thing. Thank you, Gigi. Red Tar for me. Well, we see how well it worked for Masterson. Yeah, exactly. We see how well it worked for Danny Masterson. All the money cannot fix psychopaths. Absolutely. Joni Cummings, Aaron, the balloons are awesome. I think the peace sign works for the balloons. Yep. Seems like you are right. Krishna R. Do Sea Org members who maintain L. Ron Hubbard's house and car or clean up for Tom Cruise ever complain about their jobs to other Scientologists? Krishna, are you kidding me? Sea Org members who have the luxurious and cushy jobs of just having to clean up. Are you kidding? The most stressful jobs in the Sea Org are the ones that involve having to deliver Scientology to the public, because you're always supposed to get your stats up every week or else you're in a lot of trouble. And it's impossible to keep your stats up every week because Scientology is shrinking every week. The other stressful, incredibly stressful jobs in the Sea Org are various management positions who are held accountable for the fact that statistics in the organizations that deliver Scientology to paying public have been horrible for 40 years. Those managers, those Sea Org managers in those positions, those are probably even more stressful than the people who are actually doing the work in the orgs, because those guys are being held accountable for shit they have no control over whatsoever. I would argue that at the organizational level, like where you're actually delivering service to paid public, you might be pushing a rock uphill most of the time, but you do at least have some causation over your weekly stats, whereas those senior managers have zero causation whatsoever, and they are held supremely accountable for those terrible stats. So the Sea Org members who just have to clean shit, or, I don't think there's any Sea Org members who actually personally work for Tom Cruise at this point. I could be wrong about that. I believe it was that Sea Org members were the ones tasked with overseeing the hiring and training of Tom Cruise's household staff. Don't get me wrong. I know Sea Org members have done projects for Tom, like building the hangar, pimping out the cars and all that stuff. I do not think Sea Org members work in Tom's household unit, just for the record. But if they did, they would never complain. That would be like the greatest job you could ever have in the Sea Org. I swear to God. I'm not, Yeah. So let's see. Barbara in the house. Sorry, I missed the Dunedin art night. How was it? Oh, Barbara, it was amazing. There was the thing was sold out. There was tons of people there. The weather was even less than slightly less than horrible. A cool the temperature went down a little bit. A breeze was blowing the whole night. It was actually quite pleasant. I'll promote it with more than 90 minutes notice next time. I probably got like 10 or 15 people messaging me saying that they would have been there if they knew about it with some more advance notice. So I'll do better on that next time. Thank you, Barbara. All right, everyone. That is all I have on this for now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to everyone who watches until the very end. Stay tuned. I'm going to be having an interview with Sterling Tompkins very shortly. David Miscavige's nephew, former Sea Org member. Sterling is a whole lot of things. So stay tuned, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.